The latest round of legal wrangling involving former President Donald Trump is obviously a very serious legal concern for the former president. But what about the politics of it? If anything, he seems to get a boost every time he's indicted. And that continued after last week's special counsel indictment regarding the aftermath of the 2020 election. What's that all about? And how is this presidential nomination process going to unfold beginning 2 weeks from now, the very first debate in Milwaukee, Wisconsin? Well, let's go to Wisconsin. Former Governor Scott Walker, who is now the president of Young America's Foundation, you'll be hosting that debate in Milwaukee. So I guess you're all fired up and ready to go.
We are. It's going to be a great debate. I'm proud that Young America's Foundation is a partner with that. I'll literally give the welcome on the stage that night. It'll be nice, unlike 8 years ago, to actually be on the stage and not have to be worried about being under the spotlight, just giving a welcome. But I expect there'll be a lot of fireworks and a lot of interesting discussion.
What do you make of the polling I just cited? Once again, I mean, President Trump, he's now extended his lead in New Hampshire. He's got extended his lead nationally. Latest poll going head to head against Joe Biden, he's winning head to head on a national poll. What do you make of that reaction to these indictments? Normally, that would be bad for a candidate.
Right. Well, I think of two words. I think of family and forward. Let me explain what I mean by both. In the primary, when it comes to primary voters, it's family. It's one of those where even if Donald Trump wasn't necessarily your first pick in 2024, I think most Republicans can see, regardless of who their pick is, that this is political rancor. This is out of control. This is more of the same thing that we've seen attacking Donald Trump. And so, like a family, people tend to surround their family when they're in trouble. And the same thing's true of Donald Trump. They can see through this and they're outraged. What the interesting part about it, though, is what you just mentioned. Beyond just the primary polling, it's the general election polling in states like mine that matters. And that's where I say going forward, a critical mistake Republicans made in the 2022 cycle was spending too much time talking about the 2020 election instead of saying, what are you going to do going forward? That's what swing voters want in battleground states. And as long as liberals are focused on things in the past, that gives Donald Trump and others a chance to say, what are they going to do going forward? And that's a benefit for him.
Oh, so if anything, the Democrats bringing these charges against President Trump 3 years after the events of January 6th actually mires them down because it looks like they're obsessed with the 2020 election.
Absolutely. In the battleground states, I remember Chuck Todd was in Waukesha, Wisconsin with me not long ago, and he kept talking about January 6th. And I said, I defy you to walk around this park and find one person who gives a rip about January 6th today. They might have back then, but today they're more worried about their gas tank, about their grocery bill, about their tax burden, and about securing the border so fentanyl doesn't show up in their backyard when their kids or grandkids.
Let's take a look at a brand new ad. It just hit today. This is coming from one of President Trump's super PACs supporting him. Let's see it.
Hey, Joe. How come your Justice Department goes after Trump endlessly, yet they cover for your family? Hunter's laptop? Yeah, that was censored, but we know that laptop's real. And it's not just filled with photos of Hunter's drug-fueled debauchery either. Nah, it showed Hunter pocketed millions from foreign partners, cash from Ukrainian and Chinese interests accused of bribery and fraud. And remember when you claimed your family never made money from China? Well, Hunter admitted in court he took their cash. His Chinese business partner was tied to the Communist Party. How did Hunter's partners get meetings at the White House? Your brother, grandkids, even nieces and nephews.
You get the picture. This is President Trump basically saying, wait, no, you're the corrupt guy. Now, I think this does work for the primaries, Governor Walker, but do Republicans or President Trump in particular here fall into a trap of sort of talking about things other than the economy? I think it's a big issue if the president is corrupt and he's lied about it, but it doesn't bring the price of gas down.
No, but you got to do the two hand in hand. I think you can have a dual track. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I think it is powerful because the left assumes that swing voters are all obsessed about Donald Trump and his personality. They're assumed about January 6th and things of that matter. I think that this ad and this line of logic flips the script and says, this is why they're focused on. This is why they're doing it. They want to draw attention away from the real corruption that's happening with Joe Biden and his family. And I think you do that suddenly. I always say the best political arguments are the ones that people go damn straight. Now you go, oh, damn straight. I get why they're doing this. Then he's got to pivot and make the case about making for a better economy, which is what he had during his time as president of the United States.
And also, if people are getting their news from the New York Times, Washington Post, or broadcast news channels, God forbid, everything in that ad will be a revelation to them because it's not being
Right.
reported in other parts of the media.
Well, exactly. I mean, the laptop alone, we can see in the polling that had many Americans, not all, but many Americans known more about that, that would have directly influenced their vote in the 2020 election. This is not about going back, but rather explaining why are they so obsessed with it. They're covering up for their problems that you have with Joe Biden and Hunter and his entire family out there. Our friend Peter Schweitzer's talked extensively about this in the great book Red Handed. This ad and this line of logic, I think, goes a long way towards getting independent swing voters to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then you got to come to them and tell them what you're going to do to make America better going forward.
So let's focus on this debate that we were talking about. Like I said, it's August 23rd in Milwaukee, co-hosted between Fox News and Young America's Foundation, the group that you lead as the president. You alluded to the fact that you were on that stage 8 years ago, and you were, well, let's face it, all the candidates had to deal with that giant elephant in the room, Donald Trump, and we know how that election went. What's your advice to a Ron DeSantis or a Vivek Ramaswamy or further on the outskirts, some of the candidates who are really going to have to vie for time? How do they do it?
Well, I think the best advice I can give is ignore the Washington consultants. That was my biggest mistake, although I think even if I acted differently, it was Donald Trump's time for sure. I was the smart one. I got out before I got a nickname. But in the end, I think if they're going to have any possibility, they've got to go out there and be bold and be aggressive and don't, just run on your record. That's the problem I had 8 years ago. I had a great record to run on, but that's not enough. That gets you on the stage. So if you're Ron DeSantis or some of the others, your record gets you on the stage, but now you got to tell them about how you're going to translate that into being a bold and transformational president and how you're better situated to do that than someone who did it for 4 years.
From my position as a broadcaster and somebody who observes and analyzes politics, I want President Trump on that stage. I think that the voters deserve to see all of the candidates going at it, and I think he should show up. That said, whenever I talk to anyone who's in the business of winning elections, they all are unanimous. They don't think President Trump has anything to gain by showing up at this debate and everything to lose. What do you think?
Well, that is conventional wisdom for sure. But Donald Trump's never been a conventional candidate. This guy has always been cutting edge. People have always written him off. They've always told him to do things, and he's done things his way, completely different than all of that. So I think he actually is well served to be on the debate stage. I think if he comes in and does what he did 8 years ago in those first two, in particular, those first two debates, the one in Cleveland and the one at the Reagan Library. So it's queued up the same way, the one in the convention city of Milwaukee and the next one after that's in the library. If he comes in and dominates those debates, it's over. It is over. The only chance the other candidates have is if somehow he either comes and slips up, which I don't see happening, or if he doesn't show up and they're able to turn that and say, well, maybe he's afraid to defend his positions here, and they can make some inroads. So I think he's actually in a better position if he shows up and tries to dominate, which he's done before.
Finally, Governor Walker, I've heard you make the case that Generation Z, those students that are in college and up into their upper 20s, that's the key to electoral victory going forward. And I'm astounded by the crowds you draw when you do events on campuses. Do you have any tangible understanding that those crowds and the activity amongst conservatives on campuses is actually translating into votes?
Yeah, well, for starters, we're seeing the campus lectures in particular. We have over 1 billion views on our YouTube site. We've got almost 1.5 million subscribers. That's the way to do what Ronald Reagan did decades ago. And that is he bypassed the media and went out in the stump and used the bully pulpit. In our case, it's now bypassing many of the media, corporate media elites, and going directly to young people on their devices. When we make inroads there, it makes a difference. We just saw a report this last week that showed high school young men and their high school age are actually becoming more conservative. We need to counter the radicalization that we see in college campuses and schools, on digital media and so forth. When we do, we don't have to win them. We don't have to have a solid majority. We just need to make some inroads. We can't get slaughtered like we did in the 2022 election. Yeah,
we got to do better. That's for sure. Governor Scott Walker, Young America's Foundation in Wisconsin. Thanks for joining us. There's more to come on O'Connor Tonight. You're watching Salem News Channel.